Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra. Extra! Because we are on a Wednesday. Oh my goodness me. Middle of the working week already. Where did that go? Especially when you've got regular deadlines. Where does that week go? Anyway, here we are in the library, he said grandly. We've got the fire on for effect tonight, but thankfully it's been warm enough today that we haven't got to actually switch it on. So I don't get to see pound notes disappearing out of my bank account and heading towards Octopus Energy. What are we reading? We are reading The Brilliant Ghost Stations by Bruce Barrymore Halpenny, one of the first ghost story books I bought, checks notes, 36, 37 years ago. I know. Yeah, 37 years ago. I remember I was in Bath and there used to be a brilliant bookshop just over from the Weir called Whiteman's, and went downstairs. They had a little section downstairs which was like history and military, and lo and behold saw a copy of Ghost Stations, which was a book I'd heard about, bought it, did not disappoint, as you will find out tonight. Anyway, Derpy is here. Derpy is just there on the pillow, fast asleep, pretending he's fast asleep anyway. So, what are we drinking tonight? We are two beer strategy tonight. So we're having the Copperberg Premium Cider Winter Punch, which I bought that with friend Faye. I can't remember where we got it from now. Might have been Lidl. No, can't remember. Memory issues. But yeah, 3.4%. So not the strongest cider, especially as I had over the weekend that Collier's cider from Home Bargains, which was 8% or something. It was something mad, Ted. But yeah, so we haven't even read a ghost story yet, and already we have a dead soldier. And Run BT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
I'll just read you what it says on the back here. Apple cider with a taste of blackberry and blackcurrant contains sulfates to preserve freshness, suitable for vegans. Energy per 100 ml, blah, 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 blah. So Copperberg Brewery, Copperberg, Sweden. So who brought it in? Just having a look. No, I thought perhaps it was Aldi or Lidl. Doesn't matter. Anyway, what are we washing it down with? We are washing it down with, oh my goodness me, the last of the Western Gold Honey. Oh, I love this stuff. In fact, I get the horrible feeling that when I pour this one out, no, I think we've still got a finger in there, if you'll pardon the expression. So, ghost stories. Let's crack on, shall we? The Phantoms of Bottisford. Royal Air Force Bottisford on the Leicestershire border is about one of the best examples of a wartime bomber airfield. Many of the old buildings still remain intact. The 10 hangars, which were more than the average bomber station, are still standing. However, the runways are in a deteriorating condition, and the control tower stands derelict and silent. That is until dusk. Then many ghostly happenings take place. Bottisford opened as a bomber station in September 1941, and the first unit to arrive was number 207 Squadron. They were equipped with the ill-fated Avro Manchester. During the summer, they exchanged what two-engined Manchesters they had for four-engined Lancasters. The squadron continued to have losses while on night flying test on the 19th of August 1942. Lancaster R863, piloted by Sergeant W. Fordwich, crashed on the road at Normanton. Another fatal accident was on the 25th of November 1942 when Lancaster R5694, piloted by Flight Lieutenant R. Hannon, crashed on the aerodrome. The two crews are buried in Bottisford churchyard. Let's tilt the camera down a bit, that's better. The station also housed an Australian Squadron number 467 from November 1942 until November 1943. Their Lancasters took part in all the main raids, and the Aussies also had their losses. After the Aussies moved out, Bottisford ceased to be a frontline operational bomber station when the American Air Force moved in. That should be the American Army Air Force, never mind. They were part of the build-up for D-Day, and after they had gone, a heavy conversion unit moved in and remained until the airfield was closed in 1945. During the 1950s, the domestic and workshop sites were demolished and the airfield itself was purchased by Mr. John Rose. Since the closure, there have been many strange happenings. A ghost bomber has been heard many times over the airfield and, more often than not, at dusk. Strange sounds have been heard and flashing lights seen inside the old control tower. The ghostly flashing light has been seen by many people. The light apparently seems to be like a torch flashed against the walls inside the old control tower. On several occasions, the local police have been notified and, suspecting cigar smuggling or the flying in of illegal immigrants, they have thrown a police cordon around the site, but they have never caught anyone. After one report, they arrived at the old airfield and witnessed the flashing light and naturally thought that they had at last caught the lawbreakers. But once they moved in, they never found anything in the old control tower. As one policeman said, "We can't ignore the reports in case someone is going in on the old airfield." We can't ignore the reports in case something is going on at the old airfield, but we have never found any signs of human activity there at all. It is a lovely, desolate site and one that holds many mysteries. One foggy autumn morning in 1981, a man stopped on one of the old dispersal pans that are near the road that cuts through part of one side of the airfield. I had parked the car and walked onto the airfield. Suddenly, out of the mist, walked an airman in full flying kit. My mouth opened and I could not speak, he said. He just disappeared. I don't know what accent that was. I made that one, probably. The derelict operations block at Bottisford, the haunted control tower at Bottisford, stands gaunt against the elements as a stark reminder of its bleak wartime days. A ghostly light can be seen at night. So there we go. Bum, ba, bum, bum, bum. I love this book. It is, I've got to say, the follow-up books, not quite so good. They're a little bit bitty, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of the follow-up books, but the first one, absolutely solid. So let's try some of the Copperberg Winter Punch, 3.4, yeah, 3.4%. Slange me var, everybody. See, I would not say that was alcoholic. It just tastes like apple and blackberry juice. It honestly does. Oh, we got some fan mail here. Let's just read the fan mail. Dun, 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 dun. No. Let's carry on, shall we? The Manby Ghosts. In 1974, Royal Air Force Manby in Lincolnshire became a victim of the defence cuts and closed after a long period of faithful service. It had opened in 1939 as number 1 Air Armament Squad. It had opened in 1939 as number 1 Air Armament School, and many armament officers, bomb aimers, air gunners, and armourers passed through Manby. The school used many kinds of aircraft, and it was an extremely busy station during the war years. Post-war, the station housed the College of Air Warfare with their varsity aircraft, which were later replaced by jet provosts. Trying to figure that one out, actually, because the Vickers varsity is a transport aircraft, whereas jet provosts are two-seat training aircraft. No. After the closure of the airfield, a group of workmen from the Luton and Dunstable area came to Manby on contact to prepare the 3 C-type hipped 7-bay hangars and 2 aircraft repair sheds for use as grain stores for the EEC Intervention Board. The workmen would travel up each Monday morning and go home each Friday evening. During the week, they ate and slept in a caravan which they had brought and parked on the concrete apron near one of the hangars. Each day they would visit the sub-post office and general stores at Manby. This was just outside the camp and is run by Edward Ted Marcham, who had arrived about 18 months prior to the closing down of operations at RAF Manby. Ted Marcham came into contact with hundreds of people every week, and he got to know the workmen, who were a cheerful, lively lot, well-travelled and obviously quite happy with their work. 2 of them were Italians and had married English girls and settled in England. They spoke good English, but of course they persistently ended many of their words with the inevitable Italian "ah." "Don't like this, Serena," they would say to Ted Marcham. After 3 weeks, one of the Italians came into Ted Marcham's shop one morning. "Have you ever heard anything about the place over there being haunted?" he blurted out in his best English with the Italian A ever. I'm going to have to do that. I do apologise. I don't like doing this, but have you ever heard anything about the place over there being haunted? He blurted out in his best English with the Italian A ever present. To be truthful, I had, said Ted, but decided perhaps it would be better to tell a white lie. No, I said, why? The Italian moved about from one foot to the other while Ted spoke. Well, replied the little Italian, my mates and I reckon that on 2 occasions our caravan has moved in the night about 2 or 3 yards from where it was. Ted laughed and told the Italian that he had had too much to drink in the Manby. The Italian insisted they had not had too much to drink and went on to say that they were going to mark chalk lines by the wheels of the caravan and see each morning if it had moved. Well, let me know if it does move, said Ted. I sure will, said the Italian in a terrible accent. A few days later, he came back to Ted's shop with one of his English colleagues. It did, said the Italian. It moved 42 inches and none of us felt a thing. And they were both laughing and not at all worried by it. Both of them were convinced that the caravan had moved 42 inches. Over the next 2 weeks, Ted always asked them when they came into his shop if the caravan had moved again, and each time they said no. But never again did they ever mention it or joke about it. On the Monday morning of their final week, the 2 Italians came into his shop very early. Good morning, said Ted. You must have left home early this morning to get up here from Luton this early. We haven't been home this weekend, said the little Italian. We had to work this weekend to get the job finished on time, but I wish I had gone home. Ted asked him why, and the Italian he had first known looked very subdued and almost squirmed. I don't know whether to tell you or not, he said. I expect you'll hear about it anyway, so I had better tell you. But you'll not believe me. The Italian continued. On a Saturday night, we all decided to go to the family's club for a drink, and we drove round from the hangars in the van. I had promised to ring my wife at 9 p.m, so about 5 to 9, I left my mates in the club and got into the van to drive around to the telephone box at the main gate. As I opened the driver's door, the passenger door opened. I climbed in, fully expecting one of my mates to be climbing into the passenger side, but there was no one there. The door closed as it had been pulled shut, and I had the feeling that someone was sitting in the passenger seat, but it was empty. I drove at the short distance to the main gates, got out, went into the phone box, dialed my number, and my wife answered. But when I tried to speak to her, there was a most peculiar noise started up on the phone, and I could not hear her. So I put the phone down and decided to try again in a few minutes. After 3 or 4 minutes, I tried again. Again, I heard my wife answer, but as soon as I spoke, the eerie noise started again. It was impossible. So I put the phone down and decided to go back to the club and perhaps a try later. As I left the phone box, I saw an old tramp sitting huddled on the curb about a yard away. He looked in very bad shape, and I leaned over him and went to put my hand on my shoulder, saying to him, "Are you all right, old mate?" My hand went right through him. There was nothing there, but I saw him quite clearly. As my hand passed through him, it felt as if it were in a freezer, and he just disappeared before my eyes. The little Italian was very shocked by all that had happened to him, and he entered the club with his. And as he entered the club, his mate said to him, "You look as if you've seen a ghost." He replied, "I have." Over the years, anyway, Italian watching tonight, I do apologise. Over the years, there have been many ghostly happenings at RAF Manby, and there have been continued sightings since the airfield closed. In December 1973, Mr. and Mrs. Marcham were out walking the dog in the boundary area of the airfield between the Saltfleet By Road and the old Armoury building, now the Lincolnshire Highways Department property. It was about 9 p.m, dark and cold, and they were both well wrapped up against the weather. The dog was running loose some way ahead. Suddenly, looming up in front of me in the gloom was an airman dressed in a greatcoat and gumboots with white socks turned down over the top, said Mr. Marcham. His coat collar was turned up and his hands deep in his pockets. I took a smart step to the right, saying, "Christ, sorry, mate," and he carried on his direct lumbering course. No answer from him at all. His wife, only a few feet from him, turned to see who he was talking to, and he turned to indicate the airman that had just narrowly missed colliding with him. Well, him, look," he said, but there was no one there. "I don't see him," replied his wife. "I definitely saw him," said Mr. Marcham, "and I heard the clump of his gumboots and swish of his feet move. And I heard the clump of his gumboots and swish as his feet moved through the tall grass." Well, that accent's gone. I don't know where it went. When they later related the incident to the lady that used to work in their shop, she told them that many people had reported seeing an airman near the old armoury. Legend has it that an RAF sergeant armourer committed suicide in the armoury during the war. East Lindsey District Council have purchased part of the main site and now have their offices in Tedder Hall. Many people have reported seeing a phantom airman in the washroom and some of the other rooms. I think that definitely does deserve a... Marvellous. In the magnificent Rush beer glass, courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States, your good health, Steve and Kirsten and Steve. Oh, that just tastes like Ribena, quite frankly. It's quite potent Ribena, but cheers me beers. Oh, the Western Gold honey. View from derelict control tower at Manby. A phantom bomber has been seen and heard many times over the old airfield, the haunted accommodation buildings at RAF Manby. There we go. Absolutely brilliant. See, if we had these kind of airfields these days, we could put them into use for, accommodation. Not solve the housing crisis, but it would help alleviate it. And that was quite interesting, that story about the phantoms of Bottisford. On several occasions, the local police have been notified and suspecting cigar smuggling or the flying in of illegal immigrants. This book was published 1990. First published 1986. That's 40 years ago. So there you go, Farage. Bloody immigration, illegal immigration, nothing new. God, I hate that man. What did you do on Wednesday night? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Wednesday and instead was treated to a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head, slagging off Nigel Farage again. I've just noticed we're a bit washed out here tonight. I'm just going to see if we can tweak the picture. Visual effects. Enhance skin appearance. No, we won't do that. Blur intensity. It's because that's what we want. We want warm. That's better. We were on bright. That's better. We're on warm now. Right. The Phantom of Squires Gate. During the late 1950s, Miss Julia Wolfe Harlow was at Squires Gate Airfield on the southern outskirts of Blackpool as a trainee air hostess employed by Mr. Russell Wyam. It is one of the oldest airfields and flying goes back to 1909, but it was not used during the First World War. The airfield was taken over by the Royal Air Force during the Second World War, and it opened with No. 3 School of General Reconnaissance in December 1940. The unit remained the main user throughout the war. Throughout 1941, the airfield housed many night fighter squadrons with Bolton Paul Defiance, and many were in action during the raids against Merseyside. Oh, Bolton Paul Defiant, what an aeroplane. One famous personality that was at Squires Gate was Amy Johnson. She took off from the airfield in an Airspeed Oxford, on the 7th of January 1941, and she crashed in the Thames estuary. Her body was never recovered and remains one of the mysteries of the Second World War. On the edge of the airfield was a shadow factory for Vickers Wellington production, and between 1940 and the end of the war, over 2,500 Wellingtons were built at Squires Gate. When Miss Wolfe Harlow arrived, the airfield was back in business with general aviation. When she was not in the air as a trainee air hostess, Miss Wolfe Harlow spent her time in a pleasure flight booking kiosk across the large airfield. One particular wet day, she stood in the booking kiosk watching the rain pour down. Suddenly, I turned and looked towards the door, said Miss Wolfe Harlow. Standing against it with his arms folded, I saw a young man who was staring ahead of him. Hello, I didn't hear you come in, I said, but he didn't look at me. He was wearing some kind of light grey uniform, but no cap. But what was so strange was the fact that his clothing was quite dry. And as I stared at him, suddenly recognizing him, he disappeared. Some time later, Miss Wolfe Harlow told her colleagues about the incident, and one of them said, I don't wonder you recognized him because that was Neville Duke. He was killed about 2 weeks ago. Today, Blackpool Airport is a busy airport, and many of the wartime buildings still remain. And as one person remarked, that was a very unfortunate airfield. I think we definitely will have a bum bum bum. Oh, whoops, daisy. Slange. Oh, we've got some fan mail. Let's quickly read the fan mail. Bum, 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 bum. Right. Let's crack on, shall we? Slange me bar. Oh, that'll get me off to sleep tonight. Saved by the ghost of his brother. Oh, goodness me, this is a 3-pager. Yeah, almost a 4-pager. Bill Caulfield had just one ambition, to be a bomber pilot in the Royal Air Force like his elder brother Jimmy. As a schoolboy of 16, he looked up to his brother when he was home on leave. in the early days of the war and was proud to see his brother in uniform. In a kind of way, it was a sort of Biggles worship, Biggles hero worship. Yet in those dark early days, bombing was in its infancy, and aircraft were very poor. Pilot Officer Jimmy Caulfield was a pilot with number 21 Squadron at Royal Air Force Watton in Norfolk, flying Bristol Blenheim Mark IVs. And during the early part of the war, when the squadron played a prominent part in number 2 Group's offensive against shipping in the English Channel and the North Sea. It was a most hazardous occupation, attacking daylight targets on low-level strikes. Jimmy could see the hero worship in his younger brother each time he was home on leave, and knowing the odds of survival were very slim, he tried his best to put him off joining the Royal Air Force as a pilot. "You're not cut out to be a bomber pilot, so try the other services," he told his younger brother many times. But Bill would mutter under his breath, and it only made him more determined to be a pilot. If his brother could do it, thought Bill, then he would also. "We might even get to fly together if the war lasts long enough," Bill used to say excitedly to his elder brother, who would smile and shake his head. "Things are so different, Bill, when you're up there with flak all around you. Fear grips you and you haven't got the right temperament." "It doesn't matter," said young Bill. That was to be the last conversation he had with his brother Jimmy. On the 12th of August 1941, 54 Blenheims attacked an industrial factory outside Cologne. It was a daring raid, and it was the first time so many aircraft had bombed the heartland of Germany in daylight. It was not only meant as a boost to morale, but also to aid the Russians in relation to the German advance. The raid had been carefully planned, and number 21 Squadron had gone to RAF Bicester to practice bombing on an area nearby, similar to their Cologne target. Number 452 Squadron escorted the Blenheims, and their task was to divert enemy fighters to help Bomber Command's heavy daylight attack. Sadly, many were hit, and among the missing were Jimmy Caulfield and his crew. 3 weeks later, news was received that their bodies had been washed up on the island of Texel in the North Sea, near the coast of Holland. Bill was just 17 years old when he heard his brother was killed in action, and the news made him more determined than ever that he wanted to be a bomber pilot and carry on where his brother had left off. He owed it now to his brother Jimmy, who had played such a big part in his life. In July 1943, Bill Caulfield was called up. During the interview, many wanted to be fighter pilots, which was glamorous and all the rage, but not Bill Caulfield. "My brother was a bomber pilot," he said, "and I want to be a bomber pilot. It's all I have ever wanted to be, and now I have my chance." After being selected, he went to number 28 Elementary Flying Training School at Wolverhampton and then to RAF Cranwell. After training on twin-engined Wellington bombers at number 82 Operational Training Unit at RAF Gamston in Nottinghamshire, Bill Caulfield then went to number 1654 Heavy Conversion Unit at Wigsley in Nottinghamshire. This was a 4-engined Avro Lancaster conversion unit and was responsible for accepting personnel from operational training units and then, after 4-engined familiarization and training, turning them out as complete crews for the squadrons of number 5 Group. But the war was now at an end and there was no need for bomber pilots, so Bill Caulfield was posted to Royal Air Force Desborough, Northamptonshire, and flew Dakotas with number 44 Group Transport Command. In 1946, he was posted to number 1 ferry unit at Pershore in Worcestershire and began ferrying various types of aircraft overseas. In January 1947, Flying Officer Bill Caulfield was detailed to fly a brand new twin-engined Avro Anson Mark 19, serial VL307, to Singapore. He got together his crew for the long journey: Flying Officer Wally Wright, navigator, and Flight Lieutenant Johnny Stoker as his wireless operator. The Avro Anson had a service ceiling of 18,000 feet and a maximum speed of 178 miles an hour at 7,000 feet. It was a bomber/reconnaissance aircraft and also used for transport and training. With no load, it had a still air range of 730 miles, and to everyone was known as Old Limping Annie. Or Old Faithful Annie, I seem to remember. Anyway, it was snowing when Bill Caulfield and his crew took off on the 13th of January 1947, and the Anson climbed slowly into the winter sky on its first leg. I think we will have a quick swig of the old beer. What are we up to? We've gone through the half-time mark, so slange. It was snowing when Bill Caulfield and his crew took off on the 13th of January 1947, and the Anson climbed slowly into the winter sky on its first leg. They flew to Buc, just outside of Paris, then to Lyon, after refueling onto Chiampo near Rome. The next leg took them to Naples, where they stayed overnight. On the morning of the 21st of January, they set out across Italy to Bari, where they again refueled to make sure they had enough. Typo here, in ENOUGHT, there shouldn't be a T there, to make sure they had enough fuel to cross the Strait of Otranto to Athens. The direct route would take them over the Pindos Mountains, which are over 8,000 feet, and to be safe, they would need to fly above 10,000 feet. They were not equipped with oxygen or de-icing gear, so it was decided to follow the coastline. So far, Bill Caulfield had flown at an average height of 5,000 feet. Just seeing how much. As they crossed over the heel of Italy and headed out across the Strait of Otranto, the crew chatted and had a few sandwiches for lunch. In clear blue sky, they headed down into the Ionian Sea and over the Ionian Islands. After 2 hours, they began to run into the electric storms that had been forecast en route. Within minutes, they were being buffeted by strong winds, and ahead of them, huge cumulonimbus clouds began building up. Bill Caulfield could tell from the feel of the aircraft that it was more than just a local storm, and he asked his navigator for a radio fix. They were flying at 5,000 feet, and visibility was deteriorating rapidly. The electrical storm was giving problems for a radio fix, and it was also forcing them down. They were past the point of no return, and Caulfield knew that his only chance was to head straight through the storm. The little Anson tossed around as Caulfield was forced lower and lower amid thunder and lightning. Suddenly, they caught a glimpse of the coastline and decided to follow it. It was their only chance. Rain lashed the Anson, and it took a beating as Caulfield fought the controls. He knew what loads were imposed on airframes, and the little aeroplane must be at its limit. The violent buffeting would have done damage if he tried to climb, so he had to stay only 50 feet above the waves. The cloud base and the sea almost merged. They were now on a wing and a prayer, and to add to their problems, fuel was becoming critical. And that definitely is a time for a quick swig of the old cider. Oh, lovely. Fuel was becoming critical. They followed the coastline along the Gulf of Corinth, keeping a sharp lookout for the coastline ahead, and then straight across to Athens, or at worst, if they could not climb, ditch on the shore. At 50 feet, they were too low to get a radio fix, so they had to rely on visual identification. Suddenly, the navigator shouted, I see the Corinth Canal. It was a chance, thought Caulfield, and he had to take it. At least in the canal, the storm would not be fierce. With that, he steered the little old Anson towards the huge gash carved through solid rock over 250 feet high that is the Corinth Canal. It is 4 miles long and only 80 feet wide, and it separates mainland Greece from the Peloponnesus. To give an idea how small it is, only one ship can pass through it at a time. The shelter they expected from inside the canal was not forthcoming, and Caulfield thought it was the end. The rain lashed mercilessly, and the altimeter was holding at 50 feet. The wipers could not clear the windscreen, and the wind was so violent it was like being in a wind tunnel. Any mistake now, and they would be dashed to pieces against the rock sides. On the other side of the canal lay the Saronic Gulf and Athens, but they were not through the canal yet. They only had a few feet to spare, for the wingspan of the Anson was 57 feet. Now they had entered the canal. There was no turning back. Everything went dark. Rain lashed, and the airfield. Everything went dark. Rain lashed, and the aircraft and Caulfield sat tense. Yeah, again. It's been a long day, folks. I've been up since 2:30 this morning. Everything went dark. Rain lashed the aircraft, and Caulfield sat tense at the controls. He was sweating profusely. Suddenly, Caulfield had a feeling of peace and calm, and he released his tight grip on the control column. I felt that someone had joined me in the cockpit, he said. It was an invisible force in the second pilot's seat. During this period, the compass was completely still, and at that point I said, "Hello, Jim," in my mind. The Anson was flying itself, and all was peaceful and quiet. Unseen hands had taken over the controls. Bill Caulfield knew who was in the second seat, and he did not have to look. It lasted about 4 minutes. It was utterly natural, recalls Bill Caulfield. Seconds later, they were out of the canal, and the darkness gave way to another world. The crew cheered. "You've done it, Bill! How the hell? I should never know," said Johnny Stoker. They both remarked how calm and quiet it was in the canal. Some minutes later, they saw the lights of Athens through the rain, and not before time, for the fuel gauges were almost at zero. After one circuit, they were down. As they taxied along the runway, the port engine went pop, pop, and cut out. For Bill Caulfield, he knew who to thank for saving their lives. He had always told his brother he would fly with him, and he knew it was Jimmy who had come to his aid at the time he needed him most. Jimmy Caulfield is one of the 168 buried in Denberg Military Cemetery on Texel Island. Was it Jimmy Caulfield? Missing a word here, it should be who. Was it Jimmy Caulfield who returned to save his younger brother? Bill Caulfield has no doubt it was. Deserves a... Right, so Pilot Officer Bill Caulfield, who felt his brother was with him. Pilot Officer Bill Caulfield, who felt his brother with him in the cockpit, and Pilot Officer Jimmy Caulfield, second right, front row, the elder brother who was killed in August 1941. So, itchy nose. So that's Bill Caulfield there. And Jimmy is there where my index finger is, just there. That's Jimmy Caulfield. Right, half time. Oh, please don't be another long one. Oh, goodness me. Please don't be another long one, he says. And do you know what? We're going to bookmark that one, but we'll come back and do that on Friday. That's a monster of a story. So bookmark that one. Right, half time. We are a bit late with half time tonight, but there we go. Slash me for everybody. Oh, delicious. Cheers. Oh, we are down to the last few bits of the beer burps there at 42 minutes and 39 seconds. There we go. We're down to the last few bits and pieces of the chai chili rice snacks from Lidl, which are brilliant. Absolutely fabulous, these are. So part deux of tonight's beer is Love Lane Blackbird Extra Stout, 6.7%. Oh, I love this stuff. I'll read you the blurb in a second. It says, Blackbird Extra Stout, brewed under the watchful eyes of the liver birds. Roasted barley, flaked oats, and a selection of dark malts are combined to create a robust, dark stout with notes of coffee, rich toffee, and chocolate, finishing with a lingering tannic bitterness. A special release from Love Lane. Love Lane Brewery, 62 to 64 Bridgewater Street, not the Bridgewater here, but this has got an E in it, extra E. Baltic Triangle, Liverpool, blah, 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 blah. 6.7%. But what I love about this is it's Gert cheap from Home Bargains. So winner, winner, Christmas dinner. What did you do on Friday night? I don't know. I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories, and all we kept banging on about was bloody beer. So, uh-oh, for the second time tonight, we have a dead soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Oh, we'll definitely get some more snacks from Lidl tomorrow. We have fan mail. No, I can't read that. Oh, I'll tell you what we got up to the last couple of days. So, oh, boo. This is it. We've come towards the end of the... the Thai chili rice snacks, which are absolutely gorgeous. No, that's it. Boo. Right. The less said about Monday, the better, quite frankly, because it wasn't a good day. But Tuesday was shopping with friend Faye. Absolutely brilliant, this. So, just see if I can find the pictures. Scrolls down, scrolls down, scrolls down. Come on. Come on. Where is my Tuesday? Oh, this is February. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So, Tuesday, I went shopping with my very good friend, Faye. I am a shopping buddy. One of those bizarre things is I'm a bloke who loves shopping, absolutely loves shopping. So we had ourselves a Mackie D's, as we jokingly called it that day. I'm not one for McDonald's, but so we went in there and had a McDonald's. That was us driving to Whirl in Faye's Mercedes SLK drop top, and that's me enjoying the drop top experience. That's us in, I think that's Home Bargains. I love Home Bargains. It's just brilliant. And that's me in McDonald's looking alarmed because I'm in McDonald's. And there's Faye enjoying her burger and her, let's go, got beer burps again, her burger and her milkshake. Oh, excuse me again. I had the vegan burger because I'm a vegetarian, chips, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was a mocha. But it was very nice. Hideously fattening, but very nice. And this is probably only about the 10th time I've been in the McDonald's in 59 years of my life, and this is about the third time in the last 10 years. So anyway, very enjoyable. And then we went shopping. Then we went back to her camper van, and there's Faye with her cat Batman, her old cat Batman. And that's one of Faye's signs in her van. This is why I get on so well with Faye, because she has the same warped sense of humor as me. And there we are back at McDonald's. So that was, and oh no, I didn't share the pictures. Right, let's try it again. There we go. That's me and Faye outside McDonald's. That's me and Faye in the car. That's me in the car. That's us in Home Bargains. That's me in McDonald's. That's Faye enjoying McDonald's. That's my McDonald's, the vegan burger with fries, and that's Faye and Batman, and that's Faye's sign. I just, honestly, her sense of humor is just absolutely, yeah, this is why we get on so well. So absolutely brilliant day. Bless you, Faye. That was exactly what I needed this week, because it's been heavy going this week. Monday, how can I word this diplomatically? Monday, I thought I had done a friend a favor. Nope, I hadn't, and I got a severe, how can I word this again, a severe telling off the next day for all the things that I had done wrong. So you just think, how can you kind of, that's the one I'm looking for. How can you mitigate for those kind of experiences? You can't. So today, so that was yesterday, that was retail fun with Faye, with good friend Faye. Today was 2 Reg walk day. And because Reg was a bit short of time today, we did Western Wood in that there Western Supermare, which we've done before, but it's brilliant. And it's a good 3 and a bit mile walk through the woods. So that's us on the start of it. That's Reg looking at the plaque that tells you that Dwight Eisenhower stayed here during the Second World War when the Americans were camping on Western Wood. And that's the water tower. And that's just typical of the landscape and the paths on Western Wood. And there we go, Worlbury Camp Hillfort, which is, honestly, it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I sound like Rick Mail now, but absolutely brilliant. That's Reg storming ahead there, and that's Worlbury Camp there, and that's some Oxide Daisies. Then, that there is Herb Robert out to sea there with the sea in the distance. So Herb Robert, also known as stinkweed. There it is, Herb Robert, when it grows in my garden, it tends to pop up in tubs and pots singularly, and it can be a bit invasive. But when you see it like that in its natural environment, it is a thing of beauty. It is stunning. And that truly was amazing today. So that's Herb Robert there. And then Burnbeck Pier, which is currently in the process of being restored. Absolutely brilliant. And that says Old British encampment. There we go. Old British encampment. So there's history there, folks. And there's Reg heading through the old British encampment. Then we found where they'd done some clearing up there. This is where they thinned out the tree cover, but they thinned out the tree cover to give you a view over the old part of Weston. Oh my goodness me, look at that. So there's Weston Pier in the distance. There is Knightstone Harbour in the foreground. I can't remember what that church is, but this is the part of Weston I love. Honestly, it is brilliant up here. And there's Reg on one of the benches enjoying the view. And there is Reg on the bench again enjoying the view. And this is a panorama shot. It's just fabulous up there. It really is. Yeah, we loved it. And there is a confused man from Dudley pointing into the distance. And again, this is all part of the encampment up there, Wilbury Camp. So this is what we were wondering. There seemed to be something covered with iron sheets here, corrugated iron. So we think it might be an old mine shaft. It says Iron Age Hill Fort and Schedule Monument. Please respect the hill fort and help us to preserve it for the enjoyment of everyone. Please take your litter home. Damage to the monument is a criminal offence under the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Areas Act 1979. So yeah, there was nothing there apart from those sheets of corrugated iron and what we can only assume is like a mine shaft or something. I'm gonna have to look this up, folks. But anyway, and then came the butchest part of the day. The manliest part of the day is Reg and I went to a couple of nurseries. So I got some hot lips, some red and white hot lips. He got some kind of plum coloured hot lips. Then we stopped off at Garden Park Garden Centre, and it was Reg's shout today, so he got me some Biscoff cake and some tea. And then we went to another garden centre, another nursery, and got some more plants. So we had a car full of stuff today, so it was brilliant. Anyway, and then on the way home, as always, when I dropped Reg off, I stopped off at Clevedon Pier. Oh my goodness me, I adore Clevedon Pier. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, there we go. Oh, and that was I think that was the Waverley in the distance. So I think I've just gone past, dropping people off. Anyway, there we go. That was today's walk. 3.44 miles. So not big compared to a lot of the walks we do. Only 8,700 steps. More importantly, we had consumed 531 calories and we climbed up to 366 feet. So not bad at all. So we'll take that as a win, quite frankly, but utterly brilliant. So thank you, Reg. Enjoyed that today. Yeah, I think next week I'm cat sitting for Faye. So I'm cat sitting Batman, but hopefully the week after we'll be back on the West Somerset Railway again. Oh, bye, Derp. Derp is off for a quick run around. Just checking who's messaged me. No, not a Robbie sausage. Right, let's crack on with part 2 of tonight's show. Like I say, we'll come back to one of these stories when we've oh, the beer burps again. Oh God, another one that's bloody long. You know what? We'll just crack on. So we will have a quick swig of the old beer to start off with. Oh, lovely. Slange. Oh, that's very coffee, chocolatey tonight. Lovely. Right. The ghosts of the white elephant. Despite its unsuitability as an airfield, Royal Air Force Acaster Malbis in Yorkshire opened in January 1942 under Number 12 Group Fighter Command. The first and only fighter squadron to be based at Acaster Malbis was Number 601, and they were flying the new American Bell Airacobra fighters. But major technical problems and bad weather caused many crashes. On the 12th of February 1942, one crashed in the River Ouse and the pilot was drowned. With the unsatisfactory state of both airfield and aircraft, the squadron moved out after only 10 weeks. Being unsuitable as a fighter station, Flying Training Command took it over, and the Airspeed Oxfords of Number 15 Pilot Advanced Flying Unit took up residence. But this unit also lost aircraft due to misty conditions along the River Ouse. The mortuary was becoming a busy place. The obvious signs were ignored, and the site was then developed into a heavy bomber station. The whole area was nothing more than drains and dikes, yet construction work started, and Acaster Malbis was rebuilt with 3 concrete runways. It was complete with 2 T2 hangars and hutted accommodation for the personnel. The bomb dump was to the east of the airfield. The airfield opened under Bomber Command, but wisely it did not receive any operational bomber units. So it was transferred to Number 7 Training Group, and the airfield was used by aircraft from nearby heavy conversion units. The White Elephant Airfield eventually closed in early 1946. The site continued in use until the early 1950s. From mid-1949 until early 1951, W. Hayes was at Acaster Malbis during his national service as a ration storeman. There were many rumours that the decontamination centre was haunted by aircrew in flying gear, he said. Apparently, it had been used as a mortuary. One airman said that he saw an airman in flying gear step out of the mist and then disappear before his eyes. It was always when there was mist, said one airman. A slight drone could be heard, and many people saw phantom figures in the mist. I'm gonna have to stop the show briefly for a few seconds because his derpy lurpiness has decided he wants to go out the garden, having woken up. So I'm gonna have to go and let him out into the garden. So we will be back in a few minutes' time. We've just gone through the hour mark. There we go. Well, good timing, Derp. So we'll be back in literally seconds. So see you shortly. Actually, we'll put the graphic up that says Sunday Night Ghost Stories will be back shortly. So we'll see you in a few seconds. Sorry about the interruption. Derpy decided that he would like some food and also go out in the garden for a wee. So we had to give him some food and open the back door. So how many pages we got for this one? Oh God, these are all tediously long. Oh goodness me, how many? No, that was a nice short one. Right. Let's have a quick beer and a bump. Cheers, me beard. Oh, this Love Lane Brewery Blackbird is absolutely incroyable, everybody. For the third time tonight. Well, what do you know? What do you know? We have a dead soldier. And Run VT, who said looking for the VT, and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
The Phantom of Royal Air Force Curtin in Lindsay. In early 1944, leading air crewman Eric Hilton Hewitt was posted to RAF Curtin in Lindsay in Lincolnshire. He was under training for general duties and eventually became responsible for station discipline after 2 years and 3 months on the station. The airfield had opened as a fighter station in May 1940. Oh, excuse me, the beer burps again. The airfield had opened as a fighter station in May 1940. And the first 3 squadrons were numbers 222 and 65, with Supermarine Spitfires, and number 253 with Hawker Hurricanes. It then housed many fighter squadrons with Belgium, Free French, Dutch, Royal Australian Air Force, Polish and American pilots, with the first American Eagle Squadron. The role of the station was to give fighter cover to the northern sector, fly convoy patrols off the east coast, support circus operations, and provide for battle-weary squadrons to rest up and regroup. The airfield came under attack from the Luftwaffe in 1940 and 1941. One night in August 1944, leading aircraftsman Hewitt was awoken by a chum in the next bed who seemed scared out of his life. "Listen," he said, "can you hear anything?" I sat up in bed, straining my ears, said Hewitt. Sure enough, I could hear some rather garbled French, but where on earth was it coming from? Hewitt was very puzzled and jumped out of bed to investigate. They searched all around with torches. "We could hear screams and still more voices in French," said Hewitt, "but could find nothing." The next day, Hewitt mentioned the incident to an airman who had been at Curtin in Lindsay since it had opened. "Ah, yes," he said. "One of the barrack blocks was hit during a raid. It was Block 37, which at that time was occupied by 3 French pilots. There were many killed." In 1965, the station was finally vacated by the Royal Air Force and transferred to the Army, housing the Royal Artillery. There have been many unexplained sounds, and one person reported hearing unearthly screams, and another seeing a phantom wartime fighter pilot near one of the hangars. That deserves a... Oh, it's another blinking long one. Oh, I prefer these when they're shorter. I'm just going to see if I can find another bookmark, actually. Oh, we do have another bookmark. I can see I'm going to be pinging bookmarks into this blessed title so that we can... Bear with, folks. Bear with. Right, we've put another bookmark in, so we're going to try and play catch up with some of the long, boring stories. Not boring, sorry, Bruce. Some of the long stories on the next Ghost Story Show. We're up to 1 hour and 9 minutes. So, goodness, we've got all that beer to drink in the next few minutes. So, sludge. And we've got some fan mail. Let's read the fan mail. I can't read that out. No, I can't read that. What how about? Oh, here we go. It's on one of my other accounts. Yep, okay. Oh, I was hungry tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So let's crack on with the ghost story, shall we? Here we go. The Haunted Bomber. Now, I can attest to this one. I've seen this one, and I can't say I've seen the ghost, but I know the aircraft in question here, the Haunted Bomber. The Royal Air Force Museum at Cosford in Shropshire has its own resident ghost called Fred. The ghost was first seen after the arrival of an Avro Lincoln bomber, number RF398, in 1977. The early post-war bomber was in need of repairs, and one in charge was ex-Royal Air Force engineer John Small, who had serviced Lincolns in the Middle and Far East. First time I saw the Phantom Airman, I was speechless, said John. He was sitting on a toolbox inside the Lincoln, then he vanished. Many of the volunteers working on the Lincoln have seen the Phantom Airman in blue battle dress jacket and a white polo neck sweater. Many people have heard footsteps coming along the fuselage, only to turn and see no one there. The Ghost Airman has been seen by many people, both in the Lincoln bomber and in the hangar. Also, since the appearance of the Phantom Airman, there have been some strange goings-on. Strange whistling of an unidentifiable tune has been heard many times in the museum. Another time, an engineer working on the Lincoln bomber fell backwards to the floor without hurting himself. And during a very cold spell, the aircraft interior was warm enough to work in without a jacket. I've just noticed, actually, bear with, folks. I've just noticed that our font is not correct for tonight. Small things, perhaps we should start the show over and do it again. No, we'll just get the right font. It is all very eerie, said John Small, so very puzzling, but everything that happens appears to be for the Lincoln bomber. The job of rewiring through the wings should have taken weeks, but it was done in 48 hours. One Sunday afternoon in September 1980, Mrs. Greaves of Cannock, Staffordshire, was visiting the museum at Cosford. It was about 4 p.m, she said. I looked up to the cockpit of the Lincoln bomber and saw a figure of a fair-haired man in a white polo neck sweater and wearing a forage cap. I felt very puzzled on seeing the figure, and it bothered me for a day or two because he was not in regulation uniform, Mrs. Greaves added. He appeared to be an officer to me, and I just felt he should not have been there in the cockpit. There are one or two theories about the Phantom Airman. One is that it could be a Spitfire pilot who was killed when his aircraft crashed, said Mr. Small. It was refurbished and put in the hangar, but it has gone, and the Phantom Airman is still here. I don't know what voice I did for Mr. Small, never mind. Another theory is that it is the ghost of an engineer who killed himself when the bomber he was responsible for crashed in the late 1940s, killing all the crew. Some parts of the crashed bomber found their way into the hangar. There have been other theories about the Phantom Airman being an engineer for during the war, over 70,000 engine and airframe mechanics and armourers passed through Cosford. The station opened in 1938, and throughout the war years, RAF Cosford housed number 9 maintenance unit in number 41 group, and they handled many kinds of aircraft, but the main ones were Spitfires and Wellingtons. Also, the Royal Air Force Hospital was established at Cosford during the war. So, there are many theories for the Phantom Airman. One thing is certain, he is at home in the old Lincoln bomber. Ba, ba, ba. I deserves a... Shall we look up Avro Lincoln at Cosford? I think we will. Avro Lincoln bomber. Here we go. Oh. And Cosford. Images. Here we go. So we'll share some images of the Cosford Avro Lincoln. Like I say, it was a development of the Lancaster. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. So, POW visit. Let's have a look. I agree. There we go. That's a nice shot of the Lincoln. So you can see it's got kind of Shackleton engines on it, but it's still got a slightly kind of Lancaster fuselage. So, there's a fallen gnat underneath the wing there. But yeah, so there we go. Oh, let's try it again. Let's try that again. Goodness me, we are making a right cock of this tonight. There we go, Avro Lincoln. So yeah, you can see the Lancaster lineage to it, but also the Shackleton lineage as well. The Shackleton being development of the Lancaster. So we'll just scroll down, and there's a oops, let's get rid of that. And there's a nice aerial shot of a Lincoln. God, this add it to stage. Right, there we go. There's a nice aerial shot of an Avro Lincoln. Let's ping the pictures up a bit bigger. And there is a nice shot of the one at Cosford. There we go, that's better. So yeah, you can see the Lancaster / Shackleton influence there. Excuse me. Scrolls down. That's a B-29. No. Oh, there we go. And there's another shot of the Lincoln at Cosford. Fantastic aeroplane, really is. So anyway, there we go. Apparently haunted. So make of that what you will. Cheers, me beers. We're up to 1 hour and 18 minutes. Goodness me, we are running late tonight. So we got some fan mail. We got some fan mail here. Just having a look. Oh, what did you do on Wednesday night? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but instead he was fanning around on his bloody phone again, which did get me into trouble on Monday, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen. But oh, the beer burps again. Do apologise. No, I can't find. Somebody sent me a message on Facebook Messenger, but I cannot find where it is. It's annoying that. Anyway, let's not hold up the ghost stories, for goodness sake. Let's read another let's not hold up the ghost stories. Let's read a ghost story. So, the man who never was. 2 weeks after his 21st birthday, David Petrie, he sounds like a dish, joined the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve in July 1942. After a period in the Middle East, he returned to the UK, and after a week's disembarkation leave, he was posted to Royal Air Force Manston in Kent. RAF Manston was one of 3 Bomber Command emergency landing grounds, the other 2 being Woodbridge in Suffolk and Carnaby in Yorkshire. All 3 were coastal airfields specially designed to handle crippled bombers in any kind of situation. With the aid of FIDO, landings could be made in all weather conditions. Manston was also fully equipped with emergency services. Sergeant David Petrie arrived at Royal Air Force Manston in April 1944, and he was put in charge of a crash crew section. It was a job that needed a lot of stomach, and within days he was cutting out dead and wounded aircrew from shot-up bombers. It was just after D-Day, and Sergeant Petrie was again on duty. One morning, just after 11 a.m., Manston received information that there was a crippled bomber limping home across the channel and trying to make it to the emergency airfield. The message was conveyed to the crash crew, and upon receipt of it, Sergeant Petrie and his crew raced down the special long runway to a point nearest to an estimated crash landing. A quick swig of the old beer. Slange. Cheers. After a short wait, a Lancaster bomber crash-landed with its port undercarriage damaged. Subsequently, it skidded across the runway and caught in some wire netting. I think that's wire netting. Caught in some wire netting with its starboard wing high in the air. The port inner was feathered when it crashed, and smoke was coming from the starboard outer engine. The crippled bomber still had its full crew on board, and as the aircraft screeched to a stop, the crew made a hurried exit, and in so doing, the pilot left the engine running. The crash crew were there by the time the bomber halted, and quickly sizing up the situation, Sergeant Petrie decided to eliminate any risk of fire and boarded the aircraft to switch the engine off. On entering the aircraft, he met a civilian wearing a brown pinstripe suit and told him that he had better get out quick because of the risk of fire. Sergeant Petrie gave him no more thought, as he was having difficulty in trying to locate the switch. The next thing that I knew was that a man leaned across and switched the engine off, said Sergeant Petrie. After making sure that everything was safe, Sergeant Petrie made his way out of the aircraft as quickly as possible, and, as he turned to walk away, saw an elderly Royal Air Force sergeant standing near the door of the aircraft. On seeing the sergeant, Sergeant Petrie asked him if he could tell him where the civilian in the brown pinstripe suit had gone, as he would like to thank him for perhaps saving his life. "You must be seeing things," replied the sergeant. "There are no civilians allowed on this airfield." Sergeant Petrie did not believe him. He had seen him, spoken to him, and as he was the only person in the aircraft with him, he had to be the person who switched off the engine. Sergeant Petrie would not take no for an answer, and throughout the day he persistently asked the other sergeant about the civilian. He was repeatedly told, "Forget it, son. There was no one other than the air crew. Only you came out of the Lancaster." After 8 months at Royal Air Force Manston, Sergeant Petrie was posted to No. 2 Armoured Car Company, Aden, January 1945 to October 1946, from where he was demobbed. 4 decades later, ex-Sergeant Petrie is still adamant about the figure he saw in the crippled Lancaster bomber. Someone switched off the engine and he knows it was not him. Had he seen his guardian angel? I think that definitely does deserve a... I think this is going to be the last one tonight. It is a deux pager, but yeah, it's going to be deux pages. So a Derpy's gone outside, so we're gonna let him have his fun outside. He's probably sat on the chair outside. He's given his dinner as well. So I'm going to have my dinner and watch some Family Guy. So I'm falling asleep in front of the television. So last of them for tonight. So Slange me var. In the magnificent United Federation of Planets shot glass. Cheers, everybody, from viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. So thank you very much. And you can hear Derpy downstairs. The fruitless search. With a splutter, the engine stalled and the aircraft plunged to the ground and burst into flames. Bolton Paul Defiant L6982 had been on a meteorological flight, and while approaching to land, for some unexplained reason, the nose went up and the engine stalled. A flight mechanic who was first on the scene said, "The pilot, Squadron Leader Ingham, was beyond all aid, and the gunner, Pilot Officer Maggs, was severely injured. The engine had been torn from the airframe and also the turret, with Maggs in it." One who heard the crash was leading aircraftsman Junker Joyce, who was in the station armory at the time. It was July 1940, and he had just been posted to Royal Air Force Warmwell in Dorset after completing an armourer's course at RAF Manby in Lincolnshire. The equipment of GCS was Wellington 1s, 1As, Hamdens, a Miles Master, a Bolton Paul Defiant, and 2 or 3 Fairy Seals, which vanished soon after he got there. The Defiant had crashed within the airfield boundary, and the turret, which was wrenched from the aircraft in the crash, was brought into the armory with gore all over the gun breech cases. "I can still see the wreckage and smell it," recalls Joyce. 3 days after the crash, there was a station parade on the aerodrome when the ashes of Squadron Leader Ingham were scattered over the airfield from a Wellington flown by Squadron Leader P. Hayes. The airfield opened in May 1937 as a training station. The object of the GCS was to instruct air gunners with squadron service. The object of the GCS was to instruct air gunners with squadron service into the latest techniques in aerial fighting. Doesn't actually explain what GCS is, though. Sorry, CGS. Don't think it does. Never mind. Warmwell was divided into 2 parts, the domestic and technical areas. In the latter were the hangars, crew rooms, and all the many sections making up the station. During the summer of 1940, number 152 and 609 squadrons used Warmwell. The latter flew in from Middle Wallop in the morning and returned home just before dark. The Battle of Britain raged over the Kent countryside, but by the 27th of September, the worst was over. Throughout the past few weeks, There had been many rumours started about squadron leader Ingham's ghost. It was said it would visit the flight office and change the flying rosters. It was very scary. That's not how you spell scary, Bruce. Goodness me. There's no extra E in scary. It was very scary for the night duty crew, and it was said that some heard the noise of a Defiant taxiing out. One night in early December, LAC Joyce was duty armourer, and with this duty it entailed sleeping. In the armoury office. It was a bright, clear, crisp night, and about 6:30 p.m. he left the NAFI and headed to the armoury section. This consisted of two rectangular huts with a concrete path between them. One hut was the workshop and the other contained the administration offices. At least one half did. The other half was the bomb carrier storeroom. So I'm slightly distracted by the fact that Derpy here, you coming up, come on. You're waiting to have your moment in the sun. Here we go. Here he is. There he comes. Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but Derpzoid here thinks it's a show about a cat. There he is, look. There he is. Oh. Welcome to Sunday Night Derp Stories. Why are you wet, Derp? Is it raining outside? No, it shouldn't be, because it's clear blue skies out there. I don't get him. Anyway, it was a bright, clear, crisp night, and about 6:30 p.m. he left the NAFI and headed to the armoury section. This consisted of two rectangular huts with a concrete path between them. One hut was the workshop and the other contained the administrative offices. At least one half did. The other half was the bomb carrier storeroom. Got the beer burps again. The only entrance to the office part was a door opening to a hallway giving access to four offices formed in a square around it. The first was the office of the armament officer, which was always locked at night. The next office was that of the Central Gunnery School Armoury, and that would be home for LAC Joyce until relieved in the morning. Across the small hallway was the office of Mr. Frank Waters of Vickers Armstrong, Weybridge. It had formerly belonged to Squadron Leader Ingham. The fourth office was that of the Station Armoury, locked since the cessation of work. LAC Joyce had the keys to all the offices and the key to the outer door. Outside there was no sound save for an old local defence volunteer guard coughing and hawking on the tarmac not far away. The LDV, local defence volunteer, was the forerunner of the Home Guard, and were usually old soldiers that had been issued with uniforms and rifles at the outbreak of war. Experience had shown that LDV Guard was hard to get rid of when they dropped in for a natter and a bit of shelter. So LAC Joyce carefully locked the outer door straight away and then tried all the other offices to make sure they were locked. The hall was lit by a single blue bulb. It's been a long day, folks. The hall was lit by a single blue bulb. Blackout screens covered all the windows. I wanted an early night, said Joyce. I had a very busy day, so I wrote a few letters before turning in. For a short while he lay reading Men Only of 1940 vintage. I was just about to drop off when, much to my surprise, I heard footsteps coming down the concrete path. to the outer door. The door opened and someone came in, walked across the hall to the door of Mr. Waters' office, opened it and went inside. Then all was quiet. Joyce sat up in bed, spellbound. Am I dreaming? He whispered to himself. No, I wasn't. I had heard someone open the outer door, cross the hallway, and whoever it might be was now in Mr. Waters' office. A sudden thought struck me. The doors had opened, but no key had been used. I checked the doors myself, and only I had the keys to them. Even as I pondered, the footsteps started again. Someone in Mr. Waters' office was opening drawers and rummaging inside them, apparently searching for something. I called out, "Who is there?" There was no answer. I called again, "Who is in there?" But all was silent. After a few seconds, the shuffling started again as before. Plainly, the office was being searched for something urgently needed. More than a trifle uneasy, I called out very loudly, "Right, I have asked you before, who is in there? If this is a joke, I fail to see it. Answer, damn you! You have no right in there." By now, LAC Joyce was out of bed. His heart raced faster as thoughts raced in his mind. He must answer now, he thought. He must answer now, he thought. But once again, the only response was a chilling, eerie silence. Oh my goodness me, this goes on for another page and a half. Goodness me. I just want some food, quite frankly. And Derp is digging into my lap at the moment, so. Oh, Derps. Joyce had to act now and slowly pulled his tunic over his pajamas. Picking up his keys, he went into the hallway lit by the blue light. He tried the outer door. It was locked, as it should have been. He quivered. He quivered. With a quick glance round, he tried all the other doors. They were locked, as he knew they would be. His hair stood up at the back of his neck as he put the key into Mr. Waters' office door, slowly opened it, felt for the switch, and put the lights on. There was no one there. The only place a person could be concealed was behind three aircrew. The only place a person could be concealed was behind three aircrew type steel lockers standing about 18 inches from the far wall. I walked over and looked behind them. There was no one there, said Joyce. Then in a flash it happened. Someone moved swiftly behind me, walked over and switched the light off, hurried over the hallway, flung the outer door open and walked quickly up the concrete path into the night. My hair stood on end and was stiff upright as I switched the light on. Joyce paused for a while. Then, having plucked up courage, tried the outer door. It was locked. Joyce froze. He was all locked in the building. Yet someone had been in there with him. He was dumbfounded, dazed and confused, and very frightened. He did not know what to make of it, and his first thought was to call the old LDV guard, but decided not to. He slowly made his way back to his room, but before doing so, once again tried all the doors. They were locked and secure. Still, with his tunic over his pajamas, Joyce lay on his bed, his ears alert for the slightest sound. Nothing more happened, and at 4 a.m. Joyce was still wide awake. just in case there was more ghostly happenings. He had left his light on, but there was only the eerie silence. Finally, he managed to sleep and slept for an hour or so, and was mightily relieved to hear the dawn, the footsteps of the first armourer coming on duty. Saying nothing of the night's events, he hastened to the billet for a cold bath and a breakfast. Oh, goodness me, Derp, why do you let me drink? Slide. In the dining hall, he met LAC Zeke Gamble and LAC Lofty Gould. At last, Zeke said, "What's up with you, Junker? You're quiet this morning. Has she ditched you, cocker?" "No, nothing like that," replied Junker Joyce. He then went on to explain what had happened in the night. "Don't be daft, Junker," Zeke said. "You imagine things. There's no such things as ghosts, if that's what you think it was." "Hold hard," said Lofty. "Is that straight up, Junker?" Gripping Lofty's arm, Joyce told him in no uncertain manner that he would hardly be likely to make it up. Lofty was a photographer, and he had told them something that made Zeke Gamble stop and think again. In charge of the photographic section was a squadron leader, Goodhart. Late one evening, quite recently, Goodhart was lying on his bed in the officers' mess reading. Across the corridor from his room was the room of squadron leader Ingham, unoccupied since the Defiant crash in July. To his utter astonishment, squadron leader Goodhart heard Ingham's door open and somebody walk down the corridor to the bathroom at the end, whistling just like Ingham used to. Goodhart leapt from his bed just in time to see Ingham walking down the corridor in shirt and slacks with a towel over his shoulder, heading for the bathroom, which he entered. Goodhart followed him, opened the bathroom door, and put the light on. There was no one in there. Squadron leader Goodhart had told Lofty never to tell anyone else what had been said, and as far as Lofty was concerned, the sooner forgotten, the better. They changed the subject and tucked into their breakfast. A few days later, however, LAC Joyce was told to report to the Armory office, and there he met Flying Officer Bibby, the armament officer, and squadron leader Goodhart, the officer in charge of the photographic section. LAC Joyce saluted. LAC Joyce, said squadron leader Goodhart. "Yes, sir," replied Joyce. Squadron leader Goodhart was a New Zealander and a gentleman of the old school and very much liked by the men. He asked about the affair of some nights ago, and Joyce told him exactly what had happened. Then, to his surprise, squadron leader Goodhart told him of his experience. Joyce stood and listened and was careful not to mention that he already knew. He asked Joyce what he made of it all, and Joyce replied that he did not know. He did not like to mention squadron leader Ingham. There was a knock on the door, and in came Mr. Frank Waters. "Perhaps," he said, "this might be of interest to you, gentlemen. It has been in my desk drawer for some time now." He did not know that his office was previously occupied by Squadron Leader Ingham. Mr. Waters handed a photograph. There you go. Mr. Waters handed a photograph to Squadron Leader Goodhart. Mr. Waters handed a photograph to Squadron Leader Goodhart, who looked hard and long, then handed it to LAC Joyce. It was a picture of a very smart officer of the Royal Air Force. Beside him stood a very beautiful lady, and hand of men and lady rested on the head of a tiny infant. Again, and hand of man and lady rested on the head of a tiny infant. Goodness me. That's it for tonight, folks. We will play catch up with where we are for next time. Anyway, cheers, me beers. Oh, slice. Oh, derps, that is lovely. So, fingers crossed. What are we up to? 1 hour and 44 minutes. That's a record, derps. So, fingers crossed. We'll be back for Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Friday night. But until then, as ever, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.